Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of our third season of the Bracket Report, a production of Delphi Bracketology, sponsored again by Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. Joining me today is our senior member, Cade Nelson. Make sure to check out our website, delphibracketology.com, for all the latest updates. And you can follow us on Twitter also at Delphi Brackets. And we start every show with the state of Indiana. We're located here in Indiana. We're interested in some teams. Cade, the Purdue Boilermakers continue to impress.
Yep, nothing's really changed much for them. They're still first in the Big Ten. They're number 4 in the net with 7 quad 1 wins. They're our top 1 seed right now, and they're undefeated on the road still. So their wins and everything like that is still pretty close to perfect. Their most recent win was a home win against Maryland where they won 58-55. We were actually at that game. That was pretty neat. But the thing with Purdue, I've said it before, they're close wins in the Big Ten. It's nothing crazy with losses or anything. They're still winning these games. But just something to keep in the back of your mind when you're watching. It might be a close game if it's against the Big Ten.
And the Indiana Hoosiers have righted the ship and have done really well lately, winning 3 games, including a quad 1 win on the road at Illinois, beating Wisconsin and Michigan State at home. 3 wins moved them from a 10 and 11 seed in comparison to other teams to a 6 seed. They have a nice win against Xavier. North Carolina is in the tournament. They have a win there as well, and they look to continue that this week with a couple of games. But the Big Ten is interesting, and that 6 through 11 seed line, Kate, is a bunch of teams with 1, 2, and 3 quad 1 wins. So a really solid week. Has moved the Indiana Hoosiers back to where they need to be. The other teams that we'd love from Indiana State, Ball State, Butler, are all struggling a little bit. Probably going to have to win their conference tournament, but we'll keep you updated on their progress. Also, Notre Dame, shout out to Mike Bray, who announced his retirement. It's meant a lot to the Notre Dame basketball community, and we wish Coach Bray nothing but the best as he moves on at the end of this year. So, Cade, one of the things we want to share with our viewers is this idea of body of work. It's really happening this week with every game matters and your entire record matters. We got to avoid recency bias. Kansas has lost 3 games in a row. Houston has lost a game. Explain your idea of body of work when we evaluate these teams.
Yeah, so when I think of body of work and that recency bias like you were talking about, I don't look at a team's 1 loss that they have in quad 3 or quad 4. Obviously, that's going to affect them later on down the road. But when you have 5 or 6 quad 1 and 2 wins, that's going to outweigh the 1 quad 3 loss you might have. So adding up all those wins and those total amounts of strength of schedule and everything that goes into the way these teams are seeded, you can't just look at the couple losses that a team has had in a little bit of a slump.
So body of work really means you got to look at the entire record. Kansas is a great study in that, losing 3 in a row, but they still have 7 quad 1 wins. They have the most quad 1 and 2 wins in the country. Those don't go away because of the 3 losses. And so a lot of people think it's, how are you playing right now? Obviously, Kansas is struggling right now. If you put teams on who's playing the best right now, Kansas would probably be a 4 or 5 seed. But the NCAA selection committee looks at every game and every result matters. So the 7 quad 1 wins don't get erased because Kansas loses in a tough conference. We'll talk about that later when we talk about our 1s and 2 seed lines. But UConn's another team that has struggled recently but has a good resume. We talked about Arizona, too, possibly being a 1 seed, and they had dropped because they lost a bad game at home. Any other teams bring your attention to? We got to look at the whole body of work, not just 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is a team that comes to our mind when we think of body of work. They have a couple home losses to Colorado and Kentucky, which make those losses quad 2, which, like I said, those 2 quad 2 losses aren't anything crazy. When they have quality wins and good metrics, they're number 2 in the net right now. So if they're still able to play solid basketball with a decently tough schedule, those 2 losses, not really get looked over, but they just kind of go to the back of your mind.
Yeah, so Tennessee's metrics, their offense and defense, is going to keep them on the 1 or 2 seed line. They need a few more quality wins, and they have chances to get that in the SEC. So now, as we end this first segment, we always look at teams that are moving up and moving down, and what we mean by that, We just got done talking about not having recency bias, but teams do move up because they get a couple of quad one wins, and then you compare them to the 3 or 4 teams around them, and they've gotten better than those 3 or 4 teams around it. That is what moves the team up and down. Their body of work is better now than it was last week. So let's talk about some teams that are moving up. Go ahead, Cade.
So my team that is moving up is St. Mary's. They're 8-0 in their last 8 games. They have 1 quad 1 win, and over those last 8 games, the average net that they played against was 140. So, not necessarily getting crazy wins, but the fact that they've been able to get 8 wins in a row is something that catches our eye. They're also 7-0 in conference play, 3-0 on the road. They're number 6 in the net, and they had a close game against Houston, which they lost by 5 on a neutral court. So some key points for St. Mary's is just the fact that they're able to play well over this stretch of 8 games, having the number 6 net and not letting any of these, maybe cupcake games get away from them and throwing off their efficiencies. So, being 8-0 in the last 8 games is something that's impressive.
For me, it's Creighton, and Creighton's interesting because they lost 6 in a row, but they had one of their better players out for sickness, I believe, their starting center. So Creighton can be anywhere from a 6 to a 10 seed, but 2 weeks ago we had them out. We talked about them today in our meeting, and we're going to probably settle on them, in the 6, 7, 8 range because we think they're a good basketball team. Their metrics are good with their net ranking, but they've got to win a few games. After this guy's gotten back now, their starting center is back. They got to win a few quality games. They've lost a couple games on the road, but they were a team that when you lose 6 in a row, you're out of the bracket. Now you're in consideration for 6, 7, and 8 because their overall body of work is getting better, and their body of work with their entire team is better, and that's something that the committee looks as well. So to end this segment, let's quickly look at teams that are moving down.
My team moving down is Arizona State. And over the last 3 games, they beat Oregon State, whose net is way up there through the roof. They lost to UCLA and USC at home. Their net has increased to 54, and their resume just is kind of boring, really. They don't have much going for them. They haven't lost a lot of games, but, even when they're winning games, they're not doing enough to increase their defensive and offensive ratings.
And my team is Missouri. They've lost 4 of 6, and that's going to hurt the body of work, the resume overall. They have a chance to win some nice games, but they're going to have to win some on the road and win on the at home, take care of business at home. So after the break, we'll take a look at a few of our tough bracket decisions this week. So stick with us here on the Bracket Report.
Ball here. Harris scores. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. Has to finish. You get a layup, take it, and an and one. Out
of here. Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with senior Cade Nelson, and we're going to talk our top 4 seeds right away in this segment and share with you some of the discussions. We had meetings this week, Monday night, 8 o'clock virtual meeting over Google Meet, and then we had a meeting this morning to kind of hammer out some of these tough decisions. We're going to share with you some of the insight. But let's go through our number 1 seed line, and that is the Purdue Boilermakers overall number 1. We have Alabama number 2, Kansas number 3, Houston number 1. So the question you have is, after last night, Kansas losing to Baylor, why are they still a number 1? I think that was really discussed last night before the game, what would happen, and then today it was rediscussed again. And we're probably going to keep them when we put out a bracket tonight or tomorrow morning, our official weekly bracket. We're going to keep this seed line the way it is. But, Cade, share with our listeners some of the teams that could potentially be in there on the number 1 seed line.
Some of the teams we have that might be able to creep in are Kansas as the last number 1 seed, Tennessee, UCLA, Texas, and Arizona. And those teams are all the teams on the 2 seed line, which is kind of crazy to have all those teams, in the top 8 teams in the country have such great resumes and still have the ability to be on the 1 seed line. And I think we were talking about last night and this morning in our meetings that Arizona is maybe the team to move up. And, their net is 11. They have 6 quad 1 wins. They're 2-2 on the road, which isn't necessarily crazy, but just the fact that those wins have accumulated over time or something that might be able to boost them to the 1 seed.
And wouldn't be surprised if you check our webpage to see Arizona on the 1 seed line. But, Houston took a bad loss. Does that one loss hurt them? As we talked about, body of work. We've got to go back and make sure we don't just do what we want to do. Is Houston lost at home to Temple. They have to drop. But if a team does move up right now, I think it's Arizona off that 2 seed line. And so our 2 seeds were UCLA, Texas, Arizona, and Tennessee. We had discussions where Texas was the number 1, 2 seed, and now after today, Texas might be a team that we drop. Your thoughts on the 2 seed line?
Yeah, I think our 2 seed line, like I said before, it's pretty solid. And the biggest thing for me when I look at the 2 seed line is, like you said, Texas. Their wins are solid. They're 3-1 on the road, but their non-conference strength of schedule is the highest out of the whole seed line. So, with all these teams having solid strength of schedules and continuing to get wins, what does it take for Texas to overcome that strength of schedule when comparing to the rest of the teams on the 2 seed line?
Cade, you bring up a good point that the strength of schedule is not the number 1 thing we look at, but when teams are so close, like these 4 teams are absolutely really tight in analyzing who goes ahead of someone. You got to look for a couple outliers, and sometimes we look at the non-conference strength of schedule as that deciding factor. So our 3 seeds, we have a couple: Kansas State, Virginia, Iowa State, and UConn. And Kansas State is that team that really sticks out on the 3 seed line for us. They're 17-2, 3-2 on the road. They're 5-1 in quad 1 and 2-1 in quad 2, so 7-2 overall. Their net is 16. So their metrics, their basketball numbers are a little bit lower, and usually it's a top 10 team that gets into the top 2 seeds. So we're going to wait a little bit on Kansas State. But, boy, they have some real quality wins. And you got some other teams in there that are pretty good as well. And when we get to the 4 seed line, we have a couple teams that could possibly even move up to the 3 seed line and 2 seed lines that are playing extremely well. But does anyone stand out besides Kansas State here on our 2 seed line?
I think the team that stands out to me on our 2 seed line is Iowa State. They have solid metrics. Their net is 10. And so, like you said, the team to move up to the 2 seed line is most likely the 10 net team. And their strength of schedule is 7. Their non-conference strength of schedule is 136. They're 2-3 on the road and have 5 quad 1 wins. And when you look up a seed line to the 2 seed line, Tennessee only has 3 quad 1 wins. So you're thinking, well, some of the teams on the 3 seed line, why aren't they up higher? And overall, it's just because of the net. But once a couple of these teams, get more wins, then we almost have to take them into serious consideration for the 2 seed line.
It was a debate on social media with the bracketologists we follow. How much emphasis do you put on winning versus how much do you put on the quality of basketball, which is measured by the net, Ken Palm, some other statistics that you have. And some people are 80% wins, 20% Ken Palm. Some are less than that. It is a real debate. And what does the committee do? I believe they look at wins first, but they look at not just raw number of wins. It's not a standings board. 5 is not better than 3 necessarily because you build in quality of wins within the tiers of or the quads 1 and 2. Connecticut might be a team that falls even though their net is higher. That would be an example. They have 4 quad 1 wins. You have teams like Baylor and Xavier on the 4 seed line that have 5 and 6 quad 1 wins. And so that's where our decision-making comes. Our 4 seed line Xavier, Gonzaga, Baylor, and Marquette. Baylor gets a big win against Kansas. I think Baylor will likely move up, tonight or tomorrow when we put out our bracket. I think Xavier has 2 huge games. We'll talk about them in the last segment that will really determine where they're at. But, boy, don't be surprised, depending on where you go for your bracket. Hopefully it's DelphiBracketology.com. But don't be surprised if you see Xavier and Baylor. The thing holding back Xavier right now is a 25 net. But last year, Wisconsin was a 24 net and had 9 quad 1 wins and 9 quad 2, and we kept them as a 4, and the committee put them up to 3. So I think the answer to that debate question is wins, right? It's wins. Your thought, which team's better, Xavier or Baylor on that 4 seed line?
That is a tough question, and you really put me in a tough spot there. But I think in looking at how close these teams are compared to, their quality of wins and quantity of wins, I almost feel like Xavier edges out Baylor because the tiebreaker that I think we talked about last week being those road wins. Xavier's 4-1 on the road compared to Baylor's 3-2 on the road. And so when you look at quantity of wins, they're very close, but the ability for Xavier to win on the road is something that is very important come tournament time.
Yeah, and they're going to have to prove it this week. They have two real tough conference games on the road. So then the other part of bracketing, for those of you who like to nerd out on basketball like we are right now with quad numbers and statistics and that, if you're watching the show, you're a real basketball mind, so we appreciate you guys. But is the bubble, what are those last 4 teams in? Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? And then who are the first 4 out? When we got ready for the show, we had Kentucky, Memphis, Pittsburgh, and Wake Forest in our last 4 in the tournament. We had some discussions today. We think Kentucky might be on the way out. Potentially Wake Forest might be on the way out. Your thoughts about those 6 teams we have on our run sheet here? Who's in jeopardy of maybe not being in the bracket come Wednesday when we put the bracket together?
I think, like you said, Kentucky is one of the teams that I look at when you talk about teams dropping out, just because, I talked literally just a second ago about the quantity and quality of wins, and Kentucky just doesn't have that really. They're 1-3 on the road, and they're 1-5 in quad 1 with a quad 4 loss. So when you don't have those quad 1 wins that you need to cancel out a quad 4 or quad 3 loss, those quad 4 losses become amplified. And I think Kentucky, even though their net is 39 and Wake Forest's net might be 71, they just don't have the wins to give them enough oomph to stay in the bracket.
And that's one of the things that I agree with the NCAA committee. You got to win games to get into the tournament. You just can't have the top 5-star recruits and a pedigree like Coach Kell and Kentucky. How hard is it, though, to look at Kentucky and say, oh, we're going to drop them out and we're going to move Northwestern in? Like, you don't move Northwestern in for Kentucky usually, right?
Yeah.
And you wonder if it messes with the committee, too, that you have your traditional names. But it should be the results on the court. And really, as we look at it, I don't think Kentucky and even maybe Arkansas above them, who has been ranked recently, has the resume. So who do you put in?
I would say, you mentioned it just a second ago, kind of gave it away. I think Northwestern is the team to move in. Last week, we were talking about how the Big Ten has so many teams in, but there's reason for that, for all those Big Ten teams to be in, because Northwestern is 2-3 in quad 1, and I think they just got another quad 1 win maybe last night. Yeah. They're 3-1 on the road, and their strength of schedule is 68. And when you have those wins and you're 3-1 on the road too, especially when teams above them are 1-3, 0-4, 3-3, to be able to have that positive record on the road and cause those tiebreaker ratings, I think paired with wins, you just can't keep that team out for long.
And here's an interesting thing about these quads. There's dividing points, like 1 through 30. Illinois went from 31 to 28 this morning in the net. So Northwestern gains a quad 1 because Illinois becomes a quad 1. They won a game against Wisconsin at home, which was a quad 2. So in one night, Northwestern gets a quad 1 and a quad 2, and their record looks a little bit better. I think Northwestern is. But all these teams, Penn State, I think, deserves to be in. I really like Oklahoma. Nevada gets a big win last night. They're in 33 in the net. So there are a lot of teams that we need to watch to see if they're going to make the tournament or not that are inside the bubble. But stick with us. We'll go through the Big Ten and tell you where the Big Ten teams are, and then we'll talk a little bit about some mid-majors and games to watch here on the Bracket Report.
Hi there, I'm Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we do Query and Schultz on ISC Sports Network. And Derek, unlike Ted Lasso, we have a third season.
That's right. Season number 3 right now, iscsportsnetwork.com.
Are they doing a third
You can
season on
see
that show?
episodes on Comcast 81 as well, Mondays at 7:30. I'm talking about our show, Jake, this beloved show that people tune into every single week. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, so many ways to watch Query and Schultz every Monday, 7:30. Tune in and hang out with us.
And you don't have to be a goldfish. You'll remember everything we say.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need a managed Wi-Fi service with advanced Blast Wi-Fi. Blast Wi-Fi systems provide ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Available from Mulberry Telecommunications, Blast Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections so you can connect tons of devices throughout your home with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Mulberry Telecommunications is always here to help you should any issues arise. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, and it's a blast. Blast Wi-Fi is now included with Mulberry Telecommunications fiber internet packages. Contact Mulberry Telecommunications at 296-2885 today to get started.
Welcome back. You are watching the Bracket Report, a production of Delphi Bracketology, sponsored by Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo. Thanks to them for supporting us over the years. It's now time to talk some Big Ten and some mid-major teams, Cade. So here's some seeds that we had early in the week, and we'll talk a little bit about how we might have changed them in some of our meetings. But Purdue, solid. Indiana, up to a 6th seed, but don't be comfortable, Indiana fans. A 3-game losing streak puts you right back towards the bottom. Illinois and Michigan State, body of work, 7. They've had some injuries, they've had some losses, but I think they're really entrenched in that area. Maybe an 8 seed there. Iowa, same place, 7-8 seed. We had them as an 8 starting this morning or Monday morning. Wisconsin is at the back end with the 9. Their loss may make us look at their body of work. And then you have Ohio State, Maryland, Northwestern, and Penn State, all either going to be 10 seeds, 11 seeds, or possibly out of the tournament, depending on the criteria used. The Big Ten is good this year. I think the only dominant team is Purdue. Any thoughts on those Big Ten schools?
I just hope that, they keep winning and it stays interesting as the season goes on, and hopefully someone can move up there and challenge Purdue for the conference tournament at the end of the year. Maybe that'd be fun to see. But just with these teams playing so solid, it's hard to keep them out like Northwestern and Penn State, but we have to keep one of them out at least.
Yeah, and it's just tough every night. So there's going to be losses accrued, and where do they end up? So one of the things you'll hear is, do mid-majors who normally get one team in, the team that wins their tourney, if you have a team who really is outstanding throughout the year but gets upset in their conference tourney by a lower seed, should they find a place in the tournament? I think most basketball fans, Cade, say yes. They, just sentimentally, you'd rather see a Charleston or a Florida Atlantic who are having great years. You want to see them in the tournament. But then we go back to, if it's wins and resume, should they be in? And the counter argument is they don't have the chance because they can't play. So we're going to look at Florida Atlantic, 18 in the net. And we're looking at Kent State, 35 in the net, and Charleston, 43, teams that are having outstanding seasons. Go over their resume a little bit and say what might help them or what might hurt them if they need to get into an at-large berth. Start with Florida Atlantic.
Okay. To me, for Florida Atlantic, the thing that puts them in the tournament is their 18 net. And some if it wasn't Florida Atlantic, people would say, wow, why isn't that 18 net a 3 seed or anything like that with a 17-1 record? So when you're able to play efficient basketball and they've gotten a quad 1 win, I think there's no reason for them not to be in the tournament if they don't win their conference tournament, and the reason for that being is their net, their road record at 8-1, and the ability to win at least one quad 1 game.
I think the road record speaks volumes. They do have 2 quad 1 wins, one on the road at Florida. I think for a small conference school to get in as an at-large berth, you have to prove you can beat someone and someone of quality. Florida's not in the tournament, but they're an SEC school, and you went to their place and you beat them. So I think Florida Atlantic is the one definitely, if they don't win their conference tourney in the Conference USA, that I would find a place. And their basketball metrics, like you said, at 18. The others are in that area where you could get left off. A 35 has been left out before, and that's Kent State, and a 43 is Charleston. Let's look down to Charleston. They're ranked right now in the top 25 by the AP and the coaches and all that, and they're everyone's darling. They're 20-1, which is outstanding in the Colonial Athletic. They're 9-0 in that conference. Their only quad one is a loss to North Carolina. They do not have a quad one. Are they in or are they not in?
To me, this one's tough because, for the fact that they're being ranked, it shows that they're playing solid basketball, and they're 8-1 on the road, just like FAU is. But the factor that I think for these mid-major teams is the ability to win just the one solid game.
Right.
And the fact that Charleston dropped that game to North Carolina, it shows volume to see that they played that game and just didn't take it off. But I don't know if, like you said, even if a 35 net has left out, then I'm not sure that a 43 net without a quad one win can get in.
If Charleston doesn't lose again until the conference tourney championship, I think they'll put them in, despite all the analysis you just said is correct. But I would like, as a basketball fan, I would love to see both of these schools in if they continue winning. So let's go to some games to watch this week as you get ready to watch some NCAA basketball and think about the bracket. Go ahead, Cade. What is your game of the week?
My game of the week is Alabama at Oklahoma, and is on Saturday this weekend. Oklahoma's on the bubble trying to peek into the bracket, and this was the team for us that we like. And their resume isn't terrible, but this win at home over a team on the 1 seed line, that'd be crazy for the fan base and the school. They're 5-8 in quads 1 and 2, so not the 500 level that we would like them to see. But winning this game would almost feel like winning 2 quad 1 games. So for Oklahoma, that'd be a huge resume builder. And for Alabama, in their quest at chasing Purdue for the overall number 1 seed, they really need anything to strengthen their case. And a conference win on the road against maybe a tournament team, some people have them in, some don't, that would just not be a bad look and nothing they can take away from that.
For me, it's watch Xavier this week. Xavier is on the road Wednesday, tomorrow night at UConn. Both teams are sitting on the either 3 or 4 seed line. This might be a 1 game, which adds to the body of work, but moves the needle a little bit. If Xavier wins, they might move up above UConn because they're right next to each other. And then Saturday, Xavier travels to Creighton, and Creighton needs a signature win, home or away, with their full roster. They haven't had that really good signature win. Beating Xavier at home would be that win. So watch Xavier this week, Wednesday and Saturday. Obviously watch Purdue, IU, and the Big Ten, but watch those 2 teams. Also, calling your attention, the Big 12 SEC has a challenge where they match up, and there are 2 outstanding contests on Saturday. Texas at Tennessee, that's a 2 seed, 2 teams on the 2 seed line battling, will help their resume, and Kansas at Kentucky is a game to watch. Kentucky needs that win. If Kentucky wins, they're probably back in our bracket next week. So those are some games to watch, but that'll do it for this week episode of the Bracket Report. Thanks out to ISC Sports Network for hosting our show. Thanks to Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo for sponsoring us. That's Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets, and go to our website later today or tomorrow for the most recent bracket at DelphiBracketology.com for more. So I'm Brian Tonsoni for Cade Nelson. We thank you for watching, and until next week, may your favorite team win games, win quad 1 and 2 games, and win them on the road.
Throw it up for Tillman.
Whoa, my goodness.
122.60 for Penn. What a swim. 6 of them.